It's time to tell my story growing up as a foster kid, a product of the American government and the systems it has in place for child welfare. My hope is to shed some light on the reality of what life was like growing up as a foster kid with 15 different sets of parents, over 25 placements, that's different places that I transitioned to and lived in. If I can come through my upbringing and carve out a healthy path and healthy life for my partner and I, which, it is a daily struggle, but if I can do it, anyone watching this can get through their traumas and their hardships and live a happy, healthy, and productive life. I do believe that. That's why I'm, being vulnerable and sharing my truth right now. So, one truth, my life story, it can only really happen in America, not really anywhere else, and I'll get into that a little bit later. First, I want to tell you that my girlfriend and I, Nicholette, we travel full-time in a camper van we built ourselves. We do that because we love travel, and we decided that was the best way for us to do it on the budget we had. So we built out a camper van into a beautiful little home, and we travel full-time doing that. If that interests you, if you like adventures, if you want to see a raw take on what it's like living in a van and traveling full-time, making a life for yourself, definitely subscribe to our channel, check out some of our other videos, and we would love to have you. Leave some love on this video, and I hope to see you on some of our old content. We got a bunch on there, and some of our future. I was a foster kid my whole life, and I'm gonna tell you my story. Let's get into it. I'm gonna sit down for this one. It's been a long time since I shared my story. So I entered foster care at age 4 due to no fault of my own. As many innocent children do, there is a stigma around foster kids that, oh, those kids are bad, they're bad eggs. Why did you enter foster care? Things like that, questions. And the truth is, usually the kids have nothing to do with why they're in foster care. It's typically, there's a system set in place by the American government for addicted parents, parents who are deemed unfit, parents that have their kids in unsafe situations. The government will step in, or the county will step in, and they'll take their kids off them and place them into a more fitting home, or at least that's the hope. Both of my parents had victim mentalities. They were addicted to drugs, and they chose drugs over their children. They just weren't strong enough to really fight that. I was 4 years old. I didn't really know what was going on, but when I was 4, my mother and father lost all 7 of their children, 6 at that time, 1 later on. I was a middle child, and most of my siblings were adopted by family, or, they were younger, so they were adopted pretty immediately. Myself and my brother, we entered care, and we went to one day I was, at a familiar place with familiar people. The next day, my brother and I were in a home with strangers. And that's kind of how life went for me for a long time. I also want to note that out of respect for privacy, I'm not going to really use specific names. I'm sharing my story, and there are other people involved, but it's their story to tell, so I won't say their names. So my brother and I, we get taken away from our parents. It was really new to us. We had no idea what was going on. My brother and I kind of lived like that for quite a few homes. It was 3. They tried to get us adopted together as a unit, and it didn't really work out that way, sadly. That was the only real connection I had to my childhood left, because everything else was strangers. So we moved to the first home. That was temporary, lasted 2 years. We moved to the second home. That was actually a farm, kind of, which was awesome. We mucked stalls at 5, 6 a.m. But while we were there, our father died, and it ended up being too difficult for the foster parents or something like that. So they didn't even say goodbye to us. They just hugged us one day and said, oh, you're going on a little vacation. You're going to meet some people. And I never saw them again. I did see them again later on in life when I started advocating for foster care. They tried to kind of excuse away their behavior, and, it was okay. We always cared about you and thought about you. Well, you should have been genuine and said, you know what? It's too tough for us. We didn't know what we were getting into. We're not keeping our commitment. You're going to a new home. I would have much preferred that over them acting like I was going to see them again, and then that was it. So yeah, we moved around. After the farm, we lived in a bed and breakfast, actually, which was kind of beautiful and was amazing. That family took us to Disney World. Ultimately, they decided that my brother and I were too hard to adopt together. I guess they talked to someone, and they got rid of me. And before they got rid of me, usually we lived in the, I don't want to say servant quarters, but the part of the house that wasn't for the public. There was, the different rooms that were themed after wood, and I was never allowed to stay in them. I had to stay, we were actually in the attic of the private housing section where the work got done for the guest. But that night that they told me I was leaving, they gave me a $1 gold coin, and they let me sleep in one of the bedrooms that was part of the bed and breakfast. How nice of them. And then I never saw them again. They never told my brother that I was going to be gone, so when he woke up, he actually freaked out. I learned this later on, and he broke a bunch of windows in the house and was like, well, if you're going to get rid of my brother, I don't want to be here. You know, you guys aren't just going to adopt me. I think that was really hard on him. It was definitely tough on me. I think I was like 10 or 11 when this happened. This was now me moving to my fourth home. They ultimately, obviously, had to get rid of him. He was breaking stuff in the house. My brother left there and ended up right next to me for a short period of time. We got to see each other until an aunt adopted him. She actually could only take one. She adopted him. Then I was the last one standing. I actually never got adopted after that. I also wasn't allowed to see my brother that I was closest to after that. Maybe one time. Then my aunt made the ultimate decision that they shouldn't see each other at all. It'll be too hard for him to transition into a normal life if he talks to his brother that's, you know, still a foster kid or something like that. You know, the situation and the way it happened was a perfect storm that was kind of messed up. After that point, they decided Brian's, you know, experienced too much trauma. He's misbehaving. Let's put him into a placement. And it was like a religious placement that was filled with a bunch of young criminals. And I was a small little 11, 12-year-old that didn't know what he was getting into. That just wanted love and connection, really, to my family or a family that accepted me for who I was and the problems I went through and the trauma I went through. I didn't have that. They put me in those placements for a couple years. It wasn't really that great. So life went on. Did try to go with a family member at one point, but by that time, I guess I was, you know, just not too mature and going through a lot of hardships and trials and traumas, and it just didn't work out. So I ended up aging through the system. I turned 18 and I got out of the system and started life as an adult without much to prepare me for real life. I mean, the life I experienced was moving. I think between respites and different things, I experienced 15 sets of parents and 20, 25 placements from age 4 to 18. That was my life. That was my reality. And it wasn't something that really prepares you for life. It did give me a lot of skills. I was a good salesman. It gave me a lot of personality. It allowed me to learn to talk to people and connect with people, but it left me with a lot of issues as well. So those are stuff that I'm still dealing with at age 28. I'm turning 29, that I'm trying to overcome. And I'm happy to do that because I'm aware, you know, that I have, you know, relationship issues and connection issues and things like that. And I have a great girlfriend that knows that about me and kind of, you know, has worked with me throughout the years, accepted me for who I am, and, you know, pushed me to grow a little bit, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to grow in body, mind, and soul. And I think at this age is when you either do that or you don't. So I'm really happy to have the perspective I do of my past. But, you know, that was life for me. One thing I wanted to touch on, and I said it earlier, I kind of teased it, is that in America is the only place where this kind of upbringing can happen for someone like me. First off, there's not even that many addicts in other countries. America pushes drugs and addictive materials onto people, especially poor America, and they end up with parents that are unfit, and their kids get taken by the state. Then the kids typically are put on drugs and prescription drugs while they're foster kids. I was put on many, become addicts as adults, have kids, their kids are taken, and it's this sick cycle that's happening. In another country, we'll say like Mexico, if someone has an issue or a parent passes away, the family, extended family or immediate family, takes their kids in and they take care of them because family is very important. I mean, there's almost any country that does that. My particular situation was unique because there's 7 of us, but this happens a lot to the poorer regions of America. It's right next to you. In every neighborhood in America, unless you live in a very well-off neighborhood, there is foster children, there's parents that have left their kids. I just want to say that America has created this system and something does need to change. Stop pushing drugs. I don't know the exact solution, but I do know that in other countries this does not happen as much. I'm very grateful for the mind that I have, for the girlfriend I have, for the life that I'm living, and I'm grateful for the perception that I have. Everyone comes out of foster care scarred and with trauma. Not everyone overcomes it or finds the tools to combat it and make themselves a better version of themselves. So I'm grateful for who I am, but there's a lot of kids out there right now hurting and they won't have the tools to be able to deal with it. And I think that that's sad. So our channel isn't, you know, about this too much, but I did want to share who I am, and hopefully I can inspire anyone out there going through trouble or trauma that you can live the life that you want. I know we do live in a van and technically I'm houseless, but that is what I wanted for life. We do have a home. This is just, we travel in our camper van full time because that's what we want to do. Nicholette shares her adventures because she wants to show people that no matter what your limitations are, no matter what happens, that you can live the life that you set out to live. You can follow your dreams and your goals. And I hope that me sharing my past and where I come from is something that can show people that as well. So thank you for watching. I do want to say that, you know, when I first aged out of the foster care system, and for many years, I did have a lot of trouble adjusting to that and a lot of trouble adjusting to being an adult, but I'm thinking I'm getting a hang on it, and I'm really appreciative of that. And as I learn more, I hope that, you know, I can encourage people more and live the best life that I can. So that's it. I want to be proud of what I do, proud of who I am, and I'm getting there. I am getting there. To be able to say that coming from where I come from, I think that that's great. So I don't identify as a victim. I identify as someone who's going to create the life that he wants to, because it is possible. If you control your mind, you control your life, and you control your actions day to day, every hour, to create the life that you want. So thank you so much for watching. If I've earned it, please subscribe to our channel, leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts or any questions you have about the foster care system. Nicholette and I are traveling for her to get surgery soon, and it has been quite the adventure, the last 5 months of medical issues, but you know, we think it's nearing an end, and we're staying patient and hopeful, and we believe in ourselves and the path that we're on. And I'm grateful, you know, to be able to share my life with you and to have the life I have. It's Nicholette. All right.